Hey, everybody, welcome back. It's Steve Fretzin, and this is the Be That Lawyer podcast. Super excited that you're here, and as always, looking to give you all the things that you need to do to be that lawyer, confident, organized, and a skilled rainmaker. Again, another quick update. If you haven't checked out Future Rainmakers with Steve Fretzin, my other podcast, go check that out. That'll be up and running and give you direct feedback on how to be that lawyer and how to make it without selling and all the fun things I teach every day. So definitely go back into your and subscribe to that and check out that show. I think we're already 6, 7, 8 episodes in on that. Addison, I'm going to take a breath and say hello. How are you?
Doing great, Steve. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I knew as soon as we met that this was going to be a match made in heaven and that we were going to work well together. And it always starts with the quote of the show. And this is one of my favorites. In fact, I probably find myself not attributing, I don't take credit for it, but I just kind of say it because it's so true. And it is life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to it. I guess you mentioned that you heard it first from Lou Holtz, but it's attributed to Chuck Swindoll. But welcome to the show and tell us why you love that quote so much.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So the quote itself, the first time I heard it, legendary football coach Lou Holtz said it, and I was like, that's a really neat quote. And I heard this when I was really young. I grew up in rural Mississippi, and that has its own challenges within itself. But I also grew up in a single parent household in Mississippi and grew up playing soccer, which are all things that are not common um, for someone who's trying to be overly successful in Mississippi. But I heard the quote, and to me, I internalized it a bunch and was just like, you can have any circumstance, you can be dealt a hand of cards that you don't love, but it's what you're dealt. The next step is how do you build off that? How do you make the most out of what you've been given? And the way that I always say it, and my wife probably hates to hear it nowadays, but I always say, no matter how bad someone has it, you always have it better than somebody else, right?
Yeah,
And I hate
yeah.
to say that, but it's the God's honest truth. So, like I mentioned, grew up in rural Mississippi, single parent household. College was, kind of a little bit of a far cry for me, but I excelled in soccer. And so I went and played at Missouri State University afterward, men's soccer team, picked up a few accolades there, but did most of my schooling online because, again, schooling was just like not the thing for me. I knew in high school I always wanted to go to law school and do contracts and transactional type work, which is an odd thing for someone in high school to say. Like, I'm
But
super
did you, is it because
interested.
you knew a lawyer or you just like saw law shows or like how did you even think about that?
That's the perfect question because being from Mississippi, you don't have a ton of idols, right? Like for me, it was Brett Favre and John Grisham. And so I could not throw a football quite as good as Brett. So I
Yeah.
knew it was going to come down to all the John Grishams I read got me super interested, got me energized. He's actually an alum of Ole Miss Law School, the same as me. And so it was almost just a bringing the circle all the way back, and it was fantastic. Loved Ole Miss. It was great. Straight out of Ole Miss, I took a job at a mid-sized regional firm in the Southeast in Birmingham, Alabama, Balch and Bingham, and did primarily M&A work, which I loved. And then I know we'll get to the piece now, but I I grew out of that role a little bit quicker than most people do because you begin to realize you want to do things differently. You want to be your own kind of lawyer and be that lawyer. And that's not necessarily for the big firm model a lot of times.
Yeah, and again, I think you've got big firms with different types of cultures and experiences, and there's a number of people that have been on this show who talk about, the service partner role at a law firm, and we all know it's either you're up or you're out, and you can be a service partner for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, maybe, but I think mostly we're finding that there's a shelf life, and the lawyers who are thriving are, they're going to take matters into their own hands, and the ones that don't are a
Absolutely.
little bit up to risk, and then they go look in house thinking that's a solution. I talked to a gentleman this morning who he's had 5 jobs in 5 years, from solo to big law to in this nicest guy in the world, smart as a whip, and he's not really, sure his the job's going to be around. Like it's just all very questionable because he's not really in control.
Right. Right. And that's the way the world has trended. If you're not in control of your destiny, you're not in control of your destiny, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like if you are not the person who's building up that book, building up the interests that you want to pursue, you're always at someone else's whim. And so you can be the smartest, best lawyer that's out there, But if you can't put that into a game plan to create the business for yourself, you're always going to be subject to, this partner and I blew him off for dinner, so he's not sending work my way anymore, right? Like you just never want to be in that
Yeah.
circumstance, at least in my opinion. So I think that actually lines up. One of the questions that we talked about previously was, a favorite book. And if you ever hear me talk, I will send any of my friends a free copy of Rich Dad Poor Dad. Anybody that's interested in hearing the word, I will absolutely send you Robert Kiyosaki's book. And that's where it really cemented in my mind, like, hey, I didn't grow up with this mentality, but I can change it now and be the master of my destiny.
Yeah. And it's not easy if you think about a big firm or even a solo who is so slammed by business, which seems like a great thing, slammed by business, billing, 50, 60, hours a week. And then on top of that, has to somehow figure out how do I go out and develop my own book. And by the way, at the big law, it's like, all right, I bring in $100,000 matter. Great. They don't want it. They want the $1 million matter, right? They won't even look at $100,000 matter. So you're like, there's all these things working against lawyers in many ways. So what's your take on how lawyers, whether a big firm, mid-market, whatever, need to start developing relationships and developing business when they're under that heavy workload and pressure?
Yeah, it really does start, Steve, at the associate level. It's not preached enough. You'll hear it in law school. That was what I heard all the time. What is the biggest takeaway? And every speaker that we had would come in and say, network, 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 make connections and start to nourish those connections. That's something I failed at in my first few years in private practice. And that's because, like you mentioned, you've got this heavy workload. I realized toward the end of my second year in practice, I was like, I'm just not meeting people. I'm up here all day and all night. Like, this isn't going to be me forever. I can't do this forever. I'm a little more outgoing than most transactional lawyers. So I do like to talk to people on occasion. But the big issue is you've got such a heavy workload and you just feel like you're spinning all the time. The way that I began to counteract that was I specifically would set aside time in my calendar, at least one, it started as once a week. I would get either a breakfast coffee or a lunch with someone else who worked downtown, whether I knew them, whether it was a friend of a friend, and we just start building a relationship. We just talk, just get to know them. That's how I started playing in my soccer league in town. I met a guy who knew a guy, and then now that's one of my best friends. He's referred plenty of business to me, although that's not the original intention. You just start to meet people, and if you find people who have that same interest as you, it'll just evolve over time. But you have to be intentional. If you're not intentional about it, very few lawyers just fall into great business development. It
Well,
does happen.
it's always going to get pushed down, Addison, right? Like you got a
Yeah.
workload, it's always going to get pushed down. So how do we push it up? And that's really the not the promised land, but that's the starting point for many attorneys is figuring that out. For example, like where's some low hanging fruit, right? Like I have friends that are GCs and they could get me work, but I've never talked to them because I'm in the friend zone. Or I'm a part of a private club, or I'm on a board, or I'm part of a church or a temple, and I'm not meeting with anybody individually. These are people who already like me, know me, trust me, and I just haven't even brought up that I'm a lawyer. And I'm thinking about like how can I do this? Well, you know there's opportunity there. It's just they maybe don't know how to open up that door. Hey, everybody, do you ever wonder why top executives and athletes are so successful? It's typically because they have a coach, someone that is looking at them from the outside to identify their gaps, identify their potential. That's what I do. I'm Steve Fretzin, and I'm here to help you be that lawyer. If you're interested in a free consultation, click the link below and we'll get together and we'll identify where you can make improvements to be that lawyer.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, Steve, is some people aren't naturally good at promoting themselves. I'm a big advocate of working with coaches, working with people who can help you develop that level of business. It's not just you're not going to wake up one day and be that person that can go out and self-promote. If you're struggle talking to people, if you have social anxiety, it's okay to work with someone. It's okay to start to figure out, hey, how do I do this in a way that's going to lead me down that path that I want? And
Yeah.
like you said, one of the first things out of my mouth when I meet people is certainly, hi, I'm a lawyer, right? Like I want to get to know somebody on that personal level first, but making that transition from friend relationship or co-board member to, attorney-client relationship, that takes practice. It really does, and it might not come naturally. You're going to fail at it a few times. People are going to ask you for free work over and over again. So getting into that sweet spot for that attorney-client relationship, it's where you want to end up, but you might just need help getting there.
Yeah, and I again, not taught in law school. Everyone knows it. It's been said ad nauseum. And ultimately, whether you're an associate, you're a new solo, you're just trying to make equity, like whatever situation you're in, there's two ways to do anything. One is to just figure it out on your own and take the time and effort and energy to learn something from nothing and move up and make mistakes along the way and hope for the best. The other is to be a student of the game by investing time in learning and educating yourself through podcasts and books, articles, anything that you can find out there. Or to your point, just directly say, hey, Steve, or hey, other coach or whatever, like, I don't want to have to spend years figuring this out. Tell me what to do. Like, what's the plan? What's the process? How do I get from here to there? And I'm starting with a new client. I started with a new client yesterday or on Saturday. Today's Monday. And this is a gentleman who he's moving to a new area where he has to build a law practice from nothing. You know, he's in his 50s. He's got a family. He's had this whole other career, which is amazing. And so we sat together for an hour and a half on a Saturday and wrote a plan. And I could see the weight lifted off his shoulders because we discussed, like, this is what you actually have to do. And he realized he had been not fully kind of, involved in some of the things he should be involved with and should have been involved with, but now he will be involved with because I'm going to push him into it. But it's just sometimes it's just hard to know the path. That I kept telling him it's like having a really high end GPS system, so it just tells you where to go, and then if you make a mistake, how quickly can we make a turn and get on a better path? And he really liked that analogy, I think.
Yeah, and that's a great one. And that's the other piece, Steve, is if if we had all the answers as attorneys about how to develop the business, where to fit the product market fit for your services, you wouldn't need an outside person. If we could remove those blind spots, there would be no use, right? But that's a big issue for us as attorneys. We see a lot of times we're all specialized. You're in your little niche area, and there's something else that's you're not thinking of, whether that's on your business development side or in your practice. And sometimes you just have to ask somebody for help. That's as simple as that. But we're supposed to know all the answers, so it's always hard for us to ask for that kind of help.
Yeah. But I think, you're hearing what people are hearing what we're saying, and they're saying, maybe I need to ask for help. And it could be, again, a coach. It could be a Rainmaker friend of yours. It could be
Yep.
someone who opened up their own firm 5 years ago and it seems to be doing really well. Well, let's sit down and grab a lunch. Let me pick your brain for an hour. I mean, geez, this sounds pretty amazing. And then you find out it's horrible. Okay, well, maybe find someone else. But right, or you find out they're really struggling and they're not making any money, and you go, well, I don't want to do that. I've got to find a way to do this and not end up like my friend John or whatever
Right.
the name is. There's a point though, and I think it's happening at a fairly solid pace right now of people considering leaving in-house or established firms and striking out on their own. Are you seeing that too?
Yeah, and there's no there's no shock here, but we have a bit of an age gap between us. And with
I'm
my
much younger than
younger,
you.
yeah, that's right, that's right, that's
That's what
right.
it is.
It's just good genes over here.
Yeah,
Moisturize every night,
there
right?
we go.
But the with our generation, one of the new things that you see, and I'm early 30s, one of the things that you see with our generation is you see people getting nervous about the impact that AI is going to have on the legal business in general. And you may not see that with older lawyers quite as much. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is that the younger attorneys have neglected business development for so long because it's about getting in, cutting your teeth, putting in your hours, and just doing the work for somebody who's got the relationships. Whereas the older attorneys that are more established, they've got church connections, they've got their people whose kids play on softball teams together. You've got that built-in network where you're starting to develop and people are trusting you. But for the earlier attorneys, you really fall into that struggle gap where it's, hey, I can do the work, but I don't know anyone because I've just been so busy. And that's where the business development issue is really coming in. And we'll talk a little bit more about it, I'm sure. But that
Yeah.
was one of the big pieces for me as to when I realized I was doing myself a disservice by, December 2020, when I hit 337 hours in a month and was like, I feel terrible. And what do I have to show for it at the end of the day? Sure, we closed deals. That was great. but I wasn't at home with my wife. I neglected my friends during that time.
Yeah.
And the amount of the impact that that has on the people around you and your relationships, I mean, it can't be understated. And especially, it doesn't give you an opportunity to go and meet new people. So it's the business development fault that gets people concerned. If you've got a book of business, you're not worried about AI's impact on your business as much because you know what? You've got people who are going to pick up the phone and call you and make sure that even if they find something AI generated, you've set eyes on it because you're that trusted individual. But that's something that grows over time and just lunches, breakfasts, golf outings, whatever it may be with people who share a common interest with you.
Well, and the book of business is important on a number of levels. If you're not ready to go out on your own and you need to move laterally to another firm, you're under a bad culture, a bad comp plan, bad ability, no ability to cross market, cross sell, whatever it might be, and you need a better platform, well, then having a book of business, 500,000 to 1 million allows you to be portable and move over. If you feel like you don't want to go that route and you want to move out on your own, well, you're starting with a $500,000. Guess what? Your overhead's super low. And so most of that 500,000 is going into your pocket. So the 300,000 salary you were getting, if that's what you were getting, now you're still making 300,000, but guess what? You don't have any bosses. You're the boss, right? Now, is that where people want to just hang their hat and say, I'm good, I got my business? Absolutely not, right? That's your business today. What's your business for tomorrow? Now you're an entrepreneur, right? Now you need to get out and
Right.
develop more, and you got to have a system for that. So I think it's the lawyers who are getting fed hours that through AI and other reasons, competition, their hours have the ability to go down. They have no control, no book of business, no relationships. They're the ones that should be like poking their head out from under the table and saying, "Hey, maybe I need to breathe some air up here and learn some things."
Yeah, without a doubt. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to immediately pivot and go hang a shingle, right?
For sure.
But
Yeah.
you do see that a lot. A lot of people get that panic. They say, "Hey, I've just been laid off from my job." We see that all too often in the news. And it says, "Well, what do I do next?" Well, I know something about X. I know people need X. So like I'll start my own firm. And I've seen it even with folks that I've graduated law school with. They've gone ahead and they have started a firm, and I'll tell you, it's the firm's no longer existing, and they've gone back in, whether it's in-house or to a teaching role or something like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a different career path.
Yeah.
If you feel the anxiety of being an entrepreneur, it might not be for you. You've got to have a little bit of extra optimism to be an entrepreneur, especially when you spend all day working out of your house and you hear your dog barking out the window
Well,
every day. You
there's a
just got to get it done.
there's a sacrifice. I mean, no
For sure.
entrepreneur is successful without sacrifice. And if you just want quality of life with your spouse and your pets and your kids or whatever it is, and you're not going to put anything, more into this, that's going to be very challenging because even though there's faster, better, stronger ways of doing anything, and it's never been easier like today than it's been in the past, low overhead and software and things that can get you up and running, which we're going to talk about in a minute very quickly, it doesn't mean that it is easy. Otherwise, everybody would just do it. So getting yourself set up as an associate, start building relationships, start building some business, start educating yourself and be a student of the game, get it maybe 100, 200, $300,000 on your in your book of business, and you're in a much better place to say, hey, you know what? Now I'm ready to go out on my own. I've got a little bit of a buffer, and I feel more comfortable than if I had nothing.
It's worth a shot. If nothing else, you're creating relationships. Even people have dropped out of the practice of law recently just because of how much of a struggle they feel it is right now with the emergence of different technologies and
Yeah.
the competition. But nothing else, you've made new relationships, you've met new friends. It doesn't have to turn into, billable hours for you once you strike out. But in the best case scenario, it does, right? And you've got a business that you can control. You're the master of your own destiny and you're not subject to someone else's whims.
You got to put in a little time up front to get things organized and to get the business and the business development, everything working. The benefit of that is that, especially if you're in your 30s, I mean, that's even the most incredible than if you're in your 50s or 60s. But, and then, you're 35, you're 40, and everything. Now you've got an associate or two or three under you doing all the work. AI's kicking in. You're living this great lawyer's life. And that's sort of where I think a lot of lawyers want to be. But it's not without, again, without some risk and some issues with the challenges that can happen from it. What would you say is the number one challenge of a lawyer can expect switching from like an established firm to creating their own business?
One, you're not going to have a paralegal or an administrative assistant to help you with the stuff that you just wouldn't think about, right? When you're a lawyer in a firm, you may use like Adirant or some kind of timekeeper, submit your time, and then it just goes off into the abyss. The bill will get paid, everyone's happy, and you just keep doing your work, right?
Yeah.
Well, when I opened Summit Legal Consulting, the big difference for me was, okay, I kept my hour. I was diligent every single day in a firm. I was going to put it in at the end of every single day. We had this beautiful software. I clicked the timer and put a matter number in, and everything was perfect. Well, I don't have that now because I'm not going to, I don't have the startup funds to pay for that beautiful software. So I'm taking it by sticky note every single day. You start taking it by sticky note. Well, that's great. But when you're done with that at the end of the day, you're spending another 15, 20 minutes allocating it to where it's supposed to go on a bill sheet, and it's every little piece. And then maybe you have your lunch break. Well, instead of stepping out to go eat lunch with, a colleague, I'm researching, Thomson Reuters or LexisNexis to figure out what kind of extension I can get on my existing legal research, because you've got to sort all those things out yourself.
Yeah.
If you've got your own desk and office set up, that's great. But if you don't, if you pop in and you're like, hey, I'm just going to hang a shingle, man, you've got to outfit the whole office. You got to do it all. And it's
Yeah.
a lot of that again turns into that time suck that keeps you from doing your business development. But in my experience, it's absolutely worth it to take that short term, I would say extra like administrative type work. And you're always going to have the administrative work, but getting set up in the first place, it's a little bit more of an investment on the front end, but then you free yourself up to make those business development contacts as soon as you get moving and get the initial shock over. Feels great.
Yeah, I would talk to, if you're thinking about going on your own, I would also talk to, 3 to 5 lawyer friends that you have that have done it and ask them, what are the first 5 things I need to do? That could be your tech stack, right? What's your software? Is it Practice Panther? Is it Smokeball? Is it Clio? Is it Lawmatics? What's your marketing channel? Okay, so all right, so that I started with, by the way, I don't know about day one, but almost day one with a bookkeeper. I was like, all right, so right off the bat, I've got money coming in, great. I don't want to deal with invoicing. I don't want to have to deal with monthly. I don't have to deal with any stuff. I need someone in that seat to do that. So I had a bookkeeper, and I've had a bookkeeper. I've been in business on over 21 years. I've had a bookkeeper. You can get VAs. You need an assistant. You need a marketing person. Whatever it is, day one, they're $8 to $12 an hour now to get somebody in your
Right.
corner to help you with that stuff. So I think it's there's a risk in going out on your own. But one of them I don't think is too much on the financial side as far as like what's going on. It used to be 10 to 20,000 a month was going on. You had to plan for that, right? With the office and the assistant and secretary, phone and service, all this stuff. Everything now is automated and digital, and even answering phones. Like I've got a new thing on my phone. I just bought the new what is it called? The new Apple Air, just
Oh yeah,
lighter
yeah.
than the others. Okay, but it automatically just has this voicemail thing where every single spam that comes in, like if they can't say their name and what they're calling about, they're done. Like they're immediately marked as spam and it's done. I don't even know about it, right? Versus people that can say their name and why they're calling, which then gives me a message and allows me to answer the phone. Like I love that, right? So it's like all these automations and people that we can hire for a nickel. It's really helping to keep the overhead low so people can go out on their own and be successful without the fear of the 5 to 10,000 a month or whatever overhead.
And one thing that you mentioned there, Steve, is when you go out on your own, as lawyers, we're always limited by the amount of hours in the day, and you're charging for your time. I've switched a lot of my practice to be flat fee model now, just that's a whole different
Yeah.
story.
Yep.
But the hourly model is here to stay for a lot of people because they don't know what else to do or how to charge. But on that, you learn what sorts of things, you can outsource. Like you said, getting a VA that might be overseas in the Philippines or somewhere else, and they're working for $10 an hour, and they do a way better job administratively than I ever could. But if my time is worth, theoretically worth, 40 or 50 times that per hour, it's all about the ROI and the trade-off. And that's when you start thinking like an entrepreneur and stop just thinking like an attorney who's working on a bill sheet. So
Yeah.
once you get out, you will understand what is worth your time to spend and what is worth you hiring someone else to do it. For example, I love mowing my lawn. I pay someone else to do it now. And that's great. I love it because you know what? It might not be that ROI necessarily that I just talked about, but when I've worked a long day and my wife and son are downstairs, that's what I want to spend my time doing, right?
Yeah.
I want to hang out with them. I want to see them. And to me, that time's worth whatever it costs somebody else to come and mow my lawn every single week. And I'll continue to do it as long as I can.
By the way, if you decide that that's your time of Zen or that's your time to like relax and do your lawn, listen to Be That Lawyer podcast, everybody. It's not a bad play. Put it on loud and mow your lawn. Anyway, hey, let's wrap up, Addison, with what's your big mistake? Addison's big mistake.
Big mistake was when I was in private practice, I truly failed to work on the business development side. When I was working at the larger law firm, um, I really got sucked into a mode of, all right, partnership track is, 8 years. I've got to build this many hours per year. This is what that breaks down to monthly, weekly, daily. And I would just look at numbers and that was it. If I went out with somebody to grab lunch, I was thinking in, 0.1 hour increments, just 6 minute increments is how I live my life. And I failed to invest the proper amount of time into the business development side.
Yeah.
And so I've really made a switch in that in my life. I've tried to make sure that I'm reserving, honestly, probably 30 to 40% of my time checking in with old classmates, friends of mine who may not, I mean, honestly, it's just fun to keep up with people, see where they're at, see what they're taking on. And making sure you reserve that time is something that I made a huge mistake on. And I lost years because I did not properly invest into the business development side.
Yeah. Well, it could be the most important thing, said on any show that we've had is just the mistake of not recognizing, realizing, and taking action on the importance of having control in your future and how the book of business affects that directly. And with AI coming on and all these other aspects coming on, increased competition, be introspective and really look at where you are and look at where you want to go and how you're going to get there. And if you don't see a clear path, maybe start talking to some other folks and trying to figure it out. If you're a rainmaker and you're feeling like you're on an island, you don't have anyone to share your ideas with, solve problems with, you're going to want to check out my Rainmaker roundtables. Click the link below and learn more.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's no matter where you are in your career. If you're a 3L at law school or you just passed the bar and you're not sure what job is waiting for you, start meeting people, talk to them. If there's somebody that has a job that you want, talk to them, get to know them. Don't expect it to always lead to a job, but just pick their brain.
Yeah.
Use whatever free resources you have and whatever you can do to invest in yourself,
Yeah.
and that will pay dividends in the future.
And the interesting thing is, I mentioned at the beginning of our show about this gentleman I spoke to who's in house and the development of relationships in the companies and the firms where he's been. And that could lead to a better job. That could lead to, having enough relationships where when you go out on your own, you're able to say, look, I worked at, with you at this thing. I went in house, but if you want me back or you want to work with me again, let's do it. I'm going to be, not at 1,000 an hour, but at, 600. Do you want to come with me? And a bunch of other people. And because you develop relationships and network effectively, it still ends up becoming an important part of your growth in your career or as a private practice attorney. So really great stuff. Let's wrap up with thanking our sponsors. Of course, Law Her podcast. I met Sonia at PimCon a few weeks ago. Wow, amazing powerhouse. Great show. And of course, LegalVerse Media, check that out online. And then Rankings.io, if you're in PI and you want to get the most leads you've ever seen and you want to work with one of the best and most established companies in the world for bringing in inbound lead generation, you're going to want to talk to Rankings.io. People want to get in touch with you. They want to hear about Summit Legal Consulting and T's and CLEs. What are the best ways to reach you, Addison?
Yeah, Steve, and we're opening ourselves as resources to people. So I think it's right. If you're in one of these positions and you want to talk about anything we've talked about on the show here, send me an email, addison@summitlegalconsulting.com. I'm happy to engage with people, give them whatever free knowledge that I have, or if I can just be a guidepost and someone to be a sounding board, I'm happy to do it. And then second is you mentioned T's and CLEs. We've got an event that is an inaugural event coming in April 15th through 17th, 2026 in Phoenix, Arizona. This was a big mistake of mine, not attending events like this in the past. and not developing the business side of law. So
Yeah.
we're hosting an event. Would love to have people there that are attorneys looking to get their CLE credits for the year, but also it's a great networking opportunity. You can hit me there. That's at addison@tsandcles.com, but either email works, and happy to connect with your audience.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on the show, sharing your wisdom. I think for a lot of the folks listening, they might be in a position of transition where they're interested in making a change. Some obviously already have and are crushing it, and they're listening to the show to continue to get great advice and help. But just thank you so much, and I'm really happy that we met and that we're able to get you on the show and kind of go back and forth to help out my audience.
Yeah, Steve, and thanks for doing this for other attorneys out there who are just afraid to ask the question. So
Yeah.
it's awesome that you do this. Appreciate you having me on. And then this is such a cool experience and podcast. I hope we can grow this internationally and make it even bigger.
Yeah, it's continuing to go. I'm getting calls from Poland and Saudi Arabia and all over
That's amazing.
Nigeria. Yeah, this show has been. I spoke on this at PimCon. I just said, look, I've written 5 books. I've been writing articles for major publications for years, and nothing has influenced my life in my business more than this podcast. The people I've met and the business I've gotten and the lawyers that I've been able to change lives and people that come up to me and tell me how much it's helped them. It's all making me feel all warm and fuzzy talking about it. So anyway, you know what it is. It's all about being that lawyer, everybody. Confident, organized, and a skilled rainmaker. Take care, be safe, be well. We will talk again soon. Are you ever curious what's really holding you back in business development? Sometimes it's hard to see the label from the inside of the bottle. I'm Steve Fretzin, and I can help you grow your book of business. Get a 30-minute free consultation with me. We'll identify gaps, identify your potential, and let's take it to the next level so you can be that lawyer. Click the link below for a free consultation.